the room down?
For staff in the room, there is an overflow room, and for anybody else in the room as well, there's an overflow room on the other side. If you hear your item being called and you need to come provide testimony, you will be allowed into the room at that time. So if you do need to leave the room, please go outside on the other side. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Energy and Environment Committee. We have some very exciting items on the agenda, both on the regular and special agenda today. So our special agenda is scheduled for 3:15 this afternoon. So let's go ahead and start with our regular meeting agenda.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Rafael Prieto with the CLA's office. Item number 1 relates to Department of Water and Power report relative to approval of future use of the solar rooftop program lease agreement. You have staff from Department of Water and Power in the CAO's office.
Okay, so let's go ahead and hold item 1 on the table for now, and I'd like to proceed with approving items 2 through 6 on the consent. Are there any cards on any of these items? I only see cards for item 1. Are there any cards on items 2 through 6?
Any cards?
No. Seeing none. So colleagues, if there is no objection, I'd like to approve items 2 through 6 on consent.
No objection.
Okay, with that being done, I'd like to state that items 7 and 8 of the regular meeting agenda are also posted for our special meeting agenda. So that would be items 1 and 2 respectively. So to be able to consider these related items collectively, I'd like to have all discussion and actions occurred take place in a special meeting. So for those who have submitted cards for those items, you don't have to resubmit another card. If you've submitted cards for 7 and 8, you can go ahead and speak during the special meeting. Is that clear? Okay. So if there's no objection, let's go ahead and continue items 7 and 8.
Okay.
And now we can return to item 1. And I do have 2 cards. Why don't we take public comment first on 2 cards on item 1? Do you want to read that into the record?
Sir.
I have the cards.
You have the cards?
Do you want to read the item
Yes.
into the record?
I'll read the item again. Department of Water and Power report relative to approval of future use of the solar rooftop program lease agreement by the Department of Water and Power.
Okay, so the first speaker card I have is Jesse Marquez, followed by Magali Sanchez Hall on item 1. Can you please come forward? You each have 1 minute. Do you want to start, Mr. Marquez? Always great to see you.
Okay. Yes.
Do you want to start?
So,
Magali?
yes.
Sanchez?
Magali Sanchez Hall, and I'm a resident of Wilmington, and I'm also here on behalf of CBE, Community for Better Environments. We're here to support item number 1, 16-1284. And the reason why is because, as you might know, as a resident of Wilmington, majority of the community is low income. We are in what we call ground zero for pollution. Majority of our children have asthma and other health issues, and including cancer. Most of the houses there, we know that we have at least one person that is suffering from some sort of cancer. So we are asking for you to approve this item and for us to be able to have rooftop solar panels. This will give so much to our community to try to reduce the pollution that is already taking place by the refineries, the Port of LA, the freeways that we have all around. On behalf of our children, the community, and CBE, we ask you to support this item.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr.
My name is
Marquez?
Jesse Marquez. I'm a lifetime resident of Wilmington. I'm also the founder and executive director of the Coalition for a Safe Environment. We're a 15-year community-based organization who looks over the interests of Wilmington and the harbor communities. I'm here to support this as well. We recognize that when we live and grow up in disadvantaged communities and low-income communities, we don't get all the benefits of cities and others county and state programs. And this happens to be one opportunity that we wish to have in our communities. It could help reduce cost of electricity for families and residents. We believe that public schools, public buildings should also be involved in this project. We're also aware that, we also are victims to numerous public outages due to, overloads that happen during the course of the year, but we also recognize that big industries have a priority over residents. And because of the health problems that we have, we need to make sure and have the assurances that our residents have secure electricity for all their medical needs, air conditioning, air purification systems that are predominant. And so I ask your support. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I do have 3 additional public comment cards. We're just not clear whether you are meant to submit cards for item 1 of the regular meeting or item 1 of the special meeting. So you need to help us out here. Felipe Escobar, are you here to speak on this item? Okay, great. And what about Alicia Rivera? Alicia?
She's outside.
Can we call Alicia? And Magali? Yes. You already spoke. So you don't mean to this. So you're good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to call Alicia.
Hold on for just a second, sir, okay? I'm trying to get Alicia to come back into the room. And Agustin Cabrera, are you here to speak on item 1 of regular meeting? Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure because I know we don't make things easy for folks, trust me, I know. If we can just get Alicia to come back in, but why don't you go ahead and start, Felipe? Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Felipe Escobar. I'm an organizer with Pacoma Beautiful. We are an environmental justice organization located in the northeast San Fernando Valley. Just like Wilmington, we have many sources of pollution in the community. We actually have a power plant located in Sun Valley that is polluting the community. We also suffer from many heat days, given that we live in the valley. So the valley residents in the valley tend to suffer higher rates of energy because they have to keep their parks cool. So I'm here with Repower Relay to urge you to support the community solar program because our residents understand the importance of solar energy. They are ready to go solar, but we need a way that makes it easy for them and affordable for residents to use green energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Agustin Cabrera and then Alicia Rivera.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Agustin Cabrera. I'm a community organizer with the LA Alliance for a New Economy and also a member of the Repower LA Coalition. As the entire city moves away from fossil fuel, I should say, and towards clean energy, we are very pleased to be here today in support of community solar. We want to see the city and the Department of Water and Power invest in equitable access to solar power throughout LA. We conducted research throughout LA. Through the solar incentive program, we found major disparities across the city. For example, in Boyle Heights, residents only received roughly 33 cents per capita in solar incentives, compared to Bel Air, which received 200 per capita. This is a serious inequity, committee members. Many homeowners can't afford the large upfront installation cost of tens of thousands of dollars or afford to redo their roofs. DWP's rooftop solar program will provide a low-cost public option, so we encourage and urge the board to pass community solar.
Thank you very much. Hi, Alicia.
Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to say why it is important to have this program in our communities, low income, such as in Wilmington. We have been looking forward to this program. People in Wilmington are suffering from pollution from many sources, and they would like to be able to take control about what they can do. This is something that empowers them to do something themselves to reduce the emissions, to reduce their own footprint. People there are low income and they have been unable to afford this program, and they are looking forward to this, and Department of Water and Power already approved it, and we hope that you approve it today. This is going to alleviate the quality of air that people in low-income communities that are suffering the brunt of pollution are suffering right now. So hopefully you guys today will hear us, that we are all here in support of the Community Solar Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes public comment on this item. Madam Clerk, I don't have any more cards, correct? All right, so can we have the department come forward? Good afternoon. I thought there was someone else with you. Yeah, there is. Okay. So why don't you go ahead and give us an overview of the proposed program?
So, council members, this is Muklas Buyan, Assistant Director of Planning and Development at LADWP. So, we have recognized there are areas of low penetration as it relates to this solar power. So to fill that gap and help meet our 33% RPS by 2020, we have come up with this program. The goal of this program is to install a total of 1 megawatt connected directly to LADWP's grid. This system will be installed on customers' rooftop and for a fixed monthly lease payment of $30 to each of our customers for a total of $360 in a year. And this program will be for a 20-year period, and it will support local job creation by leveraging our efforts of home energy improvement program, and also further the goal of the energy efficiency efforts using the utility pre-craft helper program. So approving and forwarding this item before you today to full council for approval prior to the end of the year will provide an opportunity for LADWP to install 2 to 4 kilowatts of PV systems on each customer's rooftop to help meet our renewable goals, reduce overall greenhouse gas emission, and support local job creation. And at the same time, it will geographically balance the solar participation throughout Los Angeles. Thank you.
Do you have something to add?
Yes, Robert Roth, CIO's office. In addition, the total cost of this program is approximately $12.9 million over the 20-year term. There's an aggregate expected generation of approximately 1 megawatt, or 1,576 megawatt hours per year. It's noted that these systems will be owned by DWP. The systems will be installed, maintained, and, if requested or necessary, removed by DWP labor. Lastly, the leases with the customers can be terminated with 90 days notice by the department or by the customer. The CAO has reviewed and recommends approval of this.
Hello.
I'm Fred Pickle, Executive Director of the Office of Public Accountability Ratepayer Advocate. There are many ambitions for community solar programs, and there are many trial implementations that are active now elsewhere in the U.S. This is a limited pilot program that's a first step by DWP in community solar programs. And it will allow DWP to test its implementation skills in building this type of project. We're neutral on this, but we think it's important that pilot programs like this be considered.
Mm-hmm. That conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to see that this program will open the doors to many residents throughout the city of Los Angeles to begin to shift towards renewable energy. Colleagues, does anyone have any questions? Mr. Blumenfield?
Yeah, it's sort of generic. Well, I'm a big believer in trying to improve solar and community solar. I had some legislation on the state level about that and trying to aggregate solar. And so I commend DWP for moving forward in this direction. I'm a little concerned about the follow-up. I want to make sure that we have the necessary follow-up to make this a successful program. In particular, I have the AC tune-up program that we were working on to get folks their air conditioning tune-up as another one of those ways to save energy. And I've just received word yesterday that we had 3,400 applicants are suspended in the queue on that because we don't have enough money to make the program worthwhile for the contractors. So I want to make sure that we're proactive so we don't have that problem. I want to fix the problem with the AC tune-up because I think it's a great program that's almost a victim of its own success. And at the same time, I also want to make sure that we don't run into this kind of problem with community solar. Even though it's a pilot program, we could still have the same type of issues, and wanted to get whatever assurances that you can give me that we'll avoid this problem with community solar and we'll fix this problem with the AC tune-up.
So, Council Member, if you give the opportunity, I would like to give you a quick update on the AC tune-up program. If you have the time, we have our manager here who manages that. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Good afternoon, Honorable Canadian and Madam Chairman and Vice Chair. It was with a heavy heart that we had to temporarily delay the program, and it wasn't because of lack of funds. The problem was that in the AC industry, a couple of things happened. We signed up and we contracted for the vendors that were participating to provide a baseline in terms of the operating system and how our customer system was operating. That required a testing in. Under these climatic conditions, it's too cold to get an accurate reading to accurately diagnose how the system is performing. And so, consequently, the vendors were not going out, they were canceling appointments. This led to a queue that's continuing to build because customers are continuing to sign up, but yet the vendors were not going out. So the option was, and it's really a seasonal program, but we tried to see if we could try to keep it going. And as it turns out, we're going to need to modify the program in order to keep it going on a year-round basis. So the first course of action was to stop the customers coming in to the queue, temporarily inhibit customers from coming in and signing up, and then devoting additional resources to the vendors that are being recruited to address that queue of 3,400. So rather than doing the diagnostic testing in and testing out, which would establish a baseline and identify how the system was truly performing, we would put some of those diagnostic information pieces to the side and just go in, do the coil cleaning, do the filter replacement, and provide them with the programmable Wi-Fi thermostat. So that's the first plan of action to address the existing ones in the queue. The reason why spring is such an optimum target is because the temperatures are rising. It allows us to optimally test the unit and provide the service that we contracted for. In addition to that, recruitment was a challenge because the services that we were offering, it wasn't economically viable, as many of them said. So we're going to gotten the authorization to add additional funding to make it more economically viable for those contractors that we're trying to recruit. We're recruiting from businesses in the area, and it has to be economically viable for them to participate. And the news that we got back is that the model that we offered, it was just not economically worth their while to suspend their normal business to devote to our program. So we are committed to doing that, and we are committed to serving those customers in the queue. They will not be languishing until spring. We're going to work immediately, effective this Friday, to come up with a pricing point that we can clear the queue and provide the services that I indicated, minus the diagnostic component.
I appreciate that. I don't want to take up time in this committee to get too much into that program. I look forward to working with you on that offline and appreciate all the good work that you're doing on that. But we certainly want to make sure that happens, and we don't want to have a similar pitfall with this community solar program.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomfield. Thank
I
you.
would just like to mention one quick thing. We have already identified the zip codes, which will be where there is low penetration, where all this rooftop solar is supposed to go. And
Sure, and if you want to work with Mr. Bloomfield on this, that'd be great. I just don't want to take too much time of this agenda meeting to talk about this program because it's not agendized. Okay? So, Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If this program reaches its full participation capacity over its lifespan, about how many jobs will be created? And if you don't have that answer, maybe you could report back.
we can report back to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Members, are there any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, thank you very much, gentlemen. So let's go ahead and move this item for approval. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that will be the order. Thank you for coming. There are no other items on our regular agenda, so let's go ahead and adjourn that meeting and commence with our special meeting agenda. It is now noted that it's almost 3:30, so we're past our 3:15 mark. So, Mr. Prieto, go ahead and let us know what's on the agenda.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Item number 1 relates to Board of Public Works report relative to request for authority to award contracts for the Zero Waste LA exclusive franchise system. As well, Madam Chair, you have items number 2 and 3, which are pertain to draft ordinances related to the MeBe-Weebie diversity programs and so forth. You have transmittals from the city attorney on those matters as well.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take these up together, and please read the items into the record.
Sure. Item number 1, Public Works report relative to authority to award contracts for the Zero Waste LA exclusive franchise system. Item number 2, beer sanitation, city attorney reports and draft ordinance relative to the Zero Waste exclusive franchise system. And item number 3, city attorney report and ordinance, draft ordinance relative to the Zero Waste exclusive franchise system.
Okay, great. So before we take public comment, do I have any cards? Thank you. Okay, yeah. But before I do that, I want to first remind everyone that we're going to be limiting comment to 1 minute per person, and remind you all that we had public comment on the November 2nd meeting, so if I can please ask you to keep your comments focused on any new information or concerns that have come out since our last meeting on November 2nd. And secondly, I want to apologize to the members of the public who came to City Hall last week to participate in the scheduled meeting. I was not here that day, and it is my understanding that the decision was made at the last hour to cancel that meeting in order for us to allow for more additional research. I am not sure what new research people were referring to, since we had already had an existing framework to address the concerns raised at the last meeting on November 2nd. So I don't know how much more information has changed since then. I don't think there's been a whole lot of change or new research for that matter. But nevertheless, as the chair of this committee, I want to apologize for any inconvenience and frustration that you experienced when this decision was made to cancel last week's meeting. I would not have made the same decision. So I do want to apologize to all of you for taking your time to being here again today. And to Mr. Blumenfield, thank you very much for chairing the meeting of November 2nd. I really appreciate it. You did a fantastic job. And so I just wanted to make sure we have that out there. Now, I know there's members of the City Council that are here to speak on this item. So, Mr. Huizar, I'd like to afford you the time I know you were here last month as well to give your remarks, and you're joining us here again, so please.
Thank you very much, Madam, and thank you, committee members, and to all the public who are here on what is a very important item as the city moves forward to be a more environmentally friendly city. And thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned at the last meeting, we discussed moving forward with the exclusive franchise system in the city. And we all know that such a system provides many critical improvements to the way commercial trash hauling is currently happening. This is something that we've all been working on for the past 6 years. I recall the moment when we had a press conference to announce this with many of the advocates who are here today, and myself and Mr. Corretz put in a motion to start the wheels rolling on that. And I want to thank everyone who's been involved up to this point, including Don't Waste LA campaign, the Sierra Club, and NRDC, the Teamsters, and Lane. And we all know the benefits this will bring: increased recycling and waste reduction, competitive and predictable rates, safer workplaces and improved working conditions, cleaner trucks, finally, and the more efficient use of trucks, and significant investment in infrastructure in Los Angeles. As was mentioned at the last committee, however, we got poor results when it comes to the anticipated subcontractor participation, especially in the areas of small business, minority, and women-owned businesses. And in a city as diverse as ours, those numbers are embarrassing and should not be accepted by this council. We all know we value the diversity in the city as one of the most important assets that we have, and especially when it comes in an opportunity like this to provide more economic opportunities for all Angelenos. I don't believe, however, that we need to reopen the RFP in order to improve the proposal. We all don't want that. We've come too far on a program that is very important to the city to turn around and have to start from scratch. But we need to get it right, and we need to get it right today. I appreciate that putting reporting in the ordinance as in front of you today will help us in deciding on whether to renew contracts down the line, but we need to see progress next year, not 10 years from now. My hope is that we can give the haulers a chance to improve the small business participation without delaying the transition schedule. With a contract of this size and this length, we should ensure that it expands access to small businesses, including but not limited to minority and women-owned businesses, emerging and disabled veteran businesses, and others. And that's why some of the proposals that we have seen over this last week is a good way to move forward. One idea that came forward is from Councilmember Gilbert Cedillo, which proposes that we award the contracts but not execute them until January 31st, and this will give the firms an opportunity to come back within that time to report on what progress they have made into upping those numbers that we have seen. Now, the firms have sent a letter in, they've expressed verbally and otherwise, that they want to do it, but they can't because the RFP did not have this language or this requirement in there. This will give them an opportunity to do it before January 31st, and if in fact they can do it, they will do it within that time. So thank you, Councilmember Cedillo, for that proposal. I fully support it. Secondly, I am requesting some language to include that we request to sanitation to seek amendments after the contracts are executed to incorporate additional subcontracting and outreach goals so that meeting these goals are material requirements of the contracts to the extent permitted by law. The fact of the matter is that this language in reaching goals should have been in the RFP. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And shame on us. But this is not only indicative of something we need to improve in waste hauling, but in all the contracts we have in the City of Los Angeles. This language here will allow us to amend the contracts so that these are material breaches if, in fact, these goals are not reached. I'm very happy in the progress we have made, but I think given all the facts that we have seen from the haulers to our department to the mayor's office to the council members, the language we've come up with, I think, will help us all reach our goals to improve our environment, improve labor conditions, and also move forward so that all benefit here in the City of Los Angeles, no matter where you come from. I'd like to end with one other issue that was enlightening through this process. You know, we have a ban on the city doing any business with any company in Arizona. And even though my good friend Ron Herrera has told me that the Republic has done is an upstanding company, I'm still concerned about when we continue to provide exemption after exemption, although we have stated very clearly that the City of Los Angeles does not support any business with Arizona given their anti-immigrant legislation and activities. But I do think that this overall policy needs to be looked at as has been proposed by Mr. Cedillo in the past. We should consider how important it is and how real it is for us to propose boycotts and provide exemption after exemption. But overall, I want to thank you and thank everyone who's proposed this, and to get to this point is remarkable, and it shows that the City of Los Angeles is once again leading the country when it comes to the environment, labor, and showing that all people in this country, no matter where they come from, matter. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your thoughts. Along with Mr. Koretz, you were one of the original makers of the motion, and during the critical first years, you were definitely not only the maker, but also the chair of this committee. So you've been here from the inception. You oversaw the development of the franchised tax system, make sure the framework was there. So I want to thank you for your leadership on that, sir. And the city attorney, we can just note that, make note of what Mr. Huizar, some of his concerns that were raised, so that during the meeting you can help us figure out how this draft ordinance are going to address some of the concerns he just brought up.
Sure.
Okay? And we also have Mr. Buscaino that's joined us here today. I know Mr. Marquis Harris Dawson is here, but because we're more than 8 members, you can't speak. Okay, just want to make sure you knew that.
Speak yet. Someone can leave.
Someone could leave, sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of committee. I have submitted a letter for your record, and I want to share some thoughts on what's before you this afternoon. Throughout my tenure as a city council member, I've asked the same question and applied that same standard when deciding how to vote on a contract. I asked this question: is it good for my constituents? I do not believe the contract before you meets that standard, and I cannot support it in its current form. Now, I commend the Bureau of Sanitation for leading this major effort to reform the way the city handles waste hauling for commercial and multifamily customers and helping achieve our goal of becoming a zero-waste city. I supported the creation of an exclusive franchise system because I felt it would help improve the overall quality of life for my constituents. Granting one company the exclusive right to dispose of solid waste for a specific geographic area reduces air pollution and wear and tear on our city streets and alleys through more efficient routing of trucks, increases revenue, and gives the city more leverage to require the haulers to provide services that benefit all of our neighborhoods. Now, unfortunately, the contracts before you today do not mandate the community benefits that would help create a cleaner, more livable city. Now, other cities across the country with exclusive franchises require haulers to pick up illegal dumping, empty curbside trash cans, and clean up litter and debris as part of the franchise agreement. Not only do these contracts before you fail to provide those benefits, there's no commitment that the additional revenue that will be generated will be used to provide those benefits. Now, in my district alone, trash is a huge problem, and my residents have been, for many years, picking up the slack where the city has failed to ensure that their neighbors are clean and livable. For instance, Salvador Lara in Wilmington, Clean Wilmington, has spent years cleaning the streets of his neighborhood. He has seen whole streets blocked by illegal dumping and trash strewn across parks, playgrounds, and neighborhoods. Steve Kleingen in San Pedro, through Clean San Pedro, has addressed the same trash issue in the San Pedro area. In fact, in San Pedro, residents have to form community cleanups and give up their Saturdays to address large amounts of trash left on their streets and hillsides only to see it reappear the next day. In Watts, there are almost weekly volunteer cleanups to maintain our main corridors. I'm looking for, and I need a commitment from my residents, that the revenue raised from these contracts before you are going towards making a visible difference in their quality of life. I know, Chairman, Ms. Martinez, that your district and districts in Mr. O'Farrell's community and Mr. Cedillo's community and Gilbert, you led the Clean Streets Initiative, that these are all same issues facing our respective districts today. And while it may be hard for someone who has never driven through Watts or Wilmington, San Pedro, understand the impact the constant presence of trash has on your quality of life, I'm here to say it's unacceptable that our residents have to live this way in the second largest city in the country. We often talk about the 311 system, how it's important to call 311 to pick up trash. Well, I can tell you as a former police officer, senior lead officer, that if we don't call 311, if we don't pick up the trash, it will lead to a 911 call. And we as a city must do everything we can to improve the overall quality of life. And this is why that I respectfully ask your honorable committee, recommend the council request a city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance that will create a special fund to be used for the purposes of ensuring cleanliness in public areas, into which 50% of the new waste hauling revenues will be deposited. With that, I submit my letter before you, and thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak before your committee.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino, for being here this afternoon. I think many of us share similar thoughts and certainly want to look for opportunities in the franchise system to further improve our neighborhoods. And certainly it's a discussion that this committee with the Bureau of Sanitation and the waste haulers that we can further explore. And I intend to include instructions to do so moving forward.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to public comment. Let's go ahead and do that. And I will remind the speakers that you have 1 minute. I will be calling you 3 at a time, so if you can, actually 4 at a time, since there's 4 mics. If you can come forward and please take a seat. Gil Vasquez?
He was at the door.
Gil Vasquez, are you here? Okay. Ezekiel Patton? Ezekiel Patton, I'm sorry. Is he here? Ezekiel, I know someone's, there are folks on in the other room, so I want to give people ample time to get here. Is there somebody by the name of Ezekiel Patton here? Okay. Marquita Thomas? Marquita Thomas? Joseph Arroyo? Joseph? Are you Joseph? You're not Joseph. Gilbert Vasquez? Is that you?
That's me, yes.
You did Gil Vasquez and Gilbert Vasquez. You prefer go by Gil?
Same, yeah.
Okay.
Same person, but
All
if
right.
that gives me 2 minutes.
Okay, David Vila? Sir, what's your name? Patton, do you want to take a seat? Just called you for public comment. How about David Vila? Is someone here? Ma'am, what's your name? Okay, I did so. Thank you very much, sir. And is there Joseph Arroyo here? How about David Vila? Don Garza?
Yeah, David Vila's here, but he's outside.
David Vila, where is he?
He's outside.
He's outside? Okay. How about Don Garza? Don, you're here. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and take a seat? So we'll start with the four of you, and you each have 1 minute. So let's start with Mr. Vasquez.
My name is Gilbert Vasquez. I represent the Los Angeles Latino Chamber of Commerce, more than 332,000 members. We believe this contract is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, about $10 billion, about $2 billion to minority and small business, and not to have compliance with a 20% goal in advance to us is unacceptable. It's an insult to our community, as Mr. Huizar said so in his remarks. And what we would like to also do is make sure that the Republic waste hauler contract is also not allowed to go forward. You have an ordinance. You're not doing business with Arizona. They're not complying. None of these waste haulers are complying to any sense. So we completely and totally oppose going forward with a process that we think is flawed. We saw the November 29th letter signed by the 7 waste haulers. It's kind of collusive. They all agree that they're thinking about doing something. None of them make any commitments. I met with one of them. They would not make a commitment to be specific on their diversity. And if you don't have that specificity, it won't work.
The next speaker? Who wants to go next? Sir, Mr. Patton?
Hi, Zeke Patton from the Black Business Association of Los Angeles. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is my second time coming up. The BBA, as we are known, Black Business Association, we are concerned that we put minority goals on this contract on the front end when we knew that that would create problem with 209. So the contract had a structural default from the start, because now we are telling the waste haulers that you can't increase minority numbers because of 209. So we should have just put small business on there and not minority, because we got ourselves in the catch-22 now. See, the attorney is saying you can't do that because of 209. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? That's a problem. That's a real problem. I would love to see them increase minority numbers, but I don't think they're going to let us do that. I think that's the problem that we have, and I've studied this, and I hate to even say that about minorities. I think we should do small business, but the 8% is causing problems, and it should have been put in the contract from the start. So it was a flaw in the contract.
Thank you very much. Ms. Thomas?
My name is Marquita Thomas. I'm the
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. My name is Marquita Thomas. I'm the executive director of the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. It's really interesting. I spent the morning at the California Insurance Diversity Summit, a space where they understand the need for diverse spends, and they boast a multi-million-dollar and sometimes multi-billion-dollar spend in diverse spaces. And to come to a space where I have to ask and encourage a diverse spend, it's just really different. I'd like to reiterate the points I made on November 2nd, and that is to include LGBTBEs in the business inclusion program, for the business inclusion program to be part of the scoring process for RFPs, and also to hold this contract until these haulers increase their diverse subcontractor opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garza?
Yes, I am not one of these people that are well versed in the diversity issue, and I agree wholeheartedly with the diversity issue, being that I am Latino. But my big concern has always been with this contract, with what's going on here, is that I live downtown and I watch how people come from all over the city to dump their trash in our alleys and our sidewalks and find dumpsters, and they just just trash our downtown. My issue is also that I want to make sure that my recycling as a resident gets recycled and doesn't go into landfills anymore. You have the opportunity to change everything and take the leadership, just like Jose Huizar said. And it's just I agree with the way that you're doing the things that you're doing now. Of course, you got to go through these portions of it. But as a resident, I agree with what the No Waste LA thing that's happening right now.
Thank you very much. And what's your name, sir?
David Vila.
David? Okay, go ahead.
He needs the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. My name is David Vila. I'm with the Los Angeles Latino Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to address one specific issue. Gil Vasquez has already registered our objection to the contracts as written. I had only a chance to take a look at the item number 3, and I want to make a specific comment about adopting a best efforts approach to imposing goals. I have 45 years' experience in public agency procurement on both sides of the fence, and I can tell you in that experience, best efforts is nothing more than a dance without music. You can do anything you want to, anytime you want to. It doesn't make any better contracting, and it doesn't do anything for the small businesses that it's designed to assist. I'd say take that language out and require specific goal achievement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to call next set of 4 speakers. Joseph Arroyo, did he ever make it? Did you know, anybody know if he's in the other room? Joseph Arroyo, okay. Jamie Potter? Jamie Potter. Maria Chacon? Maria Chacon? Jay Wayne? Does anybody know these folks? No? Okay. What's your name, sir?
Jay Ware.
Oh, Ware. That's an R? Okay. Sorry about that. Jay, nice to meet you. Maria Chacon? Jamie Potter? Okay. George Kiefer? I know I saw him earlier. I know he's here. Sir, you want to come to the table, please? Cynthia Lozano Vaughn Hall? Gideon Kovak? I know I saw Gideon.
Krakoff.
Gideon Krakoff. Oh, thank you very much. Did Jamie Potter make it back? Anybody know Jamie? What about Maria Chacon? Okay. And how about Shelley Levine Bilik? Oh, good. Okay. So we can start with Jay. You want to go first?
Yeah, that's fine.
Go ahead.
I spoke at the last meeting. I just wanted to come back up this afternoon and say hello. I'm Jay Ware with Ware Disposal Company. We're one of the selected waste haulers for recycling and solid waste services. We've been a woman-owned business for nearly 50 years. We'd like to thank the staff for their work. We support the recommended actions, and we look forward to beginning the work as a woman-owned business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kiefer?
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee, George Kiefer, Manette Phelps, and Counsel for Athens Services. I appreciate the remarks of Councilman Buscaino this morning, but CR&R still wants to flip a contract at the Harbor franchise away from the highest scorer to the lowest, among the lowest scorers. Any effort to do this would be horribly wrong, violate the process, and probably lead to litigation. From a practical point of view, it would blow up the process. CR&R has made many false and foolish statements since the last committee, including a willingness to pay for an RFP if you're willing to do it. I won't comment on that. Or it said no company would really sue if you flipped the contract. But let me read to you just a part of what your own Bureau of Sanitation will be saying in court if there is litigation on this from any of the proposers, and almost all of them scored higher than CR&R. Quote, given the inadequacies of CR&R's proposal, there is no path that would lead to a recommendation of award to CR&R. It is not conceivable that the Bureau could recommend award to CR&R. To flip the contract would be error. We urge you to award,
Thank you, sir.
Follow and approve all the franchises
Thank you
together.
very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Lozano Vault Hall?
My name is Cynthia Lozano Vantal.
Vantal.
Vantal. I'm Dutch.
I like that.
Very nice, thank you.
I'm the proud owner of Mariposa Eco Consulting, and I am a certified woman-owned, minority-owned, and SBE. For the past 18 years, I have worked in the solid waste and recycling industry, and I have been committed to creating a sustainable world. I laud the City of Los Angeles and everyone for embarking on this zero waste initiative. When I started my company 7 years ago, I never imagined I'd be chosen as a subcontractor with Republic Services and to represent the City of Los Angeles on such an incredible initiative. I am proud to say I was born in Los Angeles County Hospital, and I am looking forward to giving back to the city that I love, and this is priceless. So I encourage you today, committee, to please support the item today. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Levine-Billick.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Shelley Levine-Billick, and I'm here representing Clements Environmental, Inc. We are a small environmental engineering firm. We're a certified small business enterprise located here in the city of LA. I also happen to be a native from Mexico City, and I've worked in the sustainability arena for more than 25 years. We've been working with Universal Waste Systems, UWS, which will be servicing the Northeast Zone. And we've been working with them for a number of years, gearing up for this franchise with their facilities and getting them ready. And as you know, and I commend the Bureau of Sanitation for realizing this, to truly implement a zero waste program effectively, it's going to take a very robust outreach and education system. And we've been asked to be responsible for that outreach, coordinate with other subcontractors, and we're very excited to partner with the city on this initiative.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to call again Joseph Arroyo. And how about Jamie Potter? No? Maria Chacon? Okay. David Hauser? Dave Hauser, are you here? You want to come up? You're going to pass. Okay, thank you. Suzanne Posantino, are you here? I thought I saw you. Greg Lockney? Greg Lockney? Did I get your last name right? Oh, because I like how you actually broke it down. Very nice. Thank you. He really did. Pronounced. Yeah.
And it's legible.
Listen, I have a weird first name, so I get it. I hate it when I butcher names, but sometimes I can't even read the writing. Jessica Aldridge. Is Jessica here? Cabrina Stokes. Kabira. Thank you. See what I'm saying? Kabira Stokes. Okay. So we have. Do you want to go first, Suzanne?
Sure. Am I good? Okay. Suzanne Passantino, Republic Services. On behalf of all 7 service providers that are recommended for the zone awards and the action before you, I'm pleased to formally submit our letter of November 28th demonstrating the commitment of each of us to increase our business inclusion partners in the delivery of zero waste services to the city. In the limited time I have, I'd like to convey that we all completely and fully understand the importance of this issue and the importance of this program, and we've already taken 2 key steps. One, increasing the participation of our existing subcontractors we understand is essential. Since the last meeting, we have identified some additional work, and we're working to increase those numbers and those pledged amounts today. Second, we're working to look at additional opportunities that were not originally considered in the RFP and the initial outreach, and are committed to do so there as well. A critical piece of our outreach also involves reaching out to many of the organizations that spoke here today and last week, the BBA, the LA Latino Chamber, NABO, and others, to target our outreach efforts as well. We've been a partner with the city for over 50 years, and we are fully committed to maintain our commitment to the city here as well. So we thank you for the consideration. We urge you to move forward with this landmark initiative.
Thank you very much. Do you want to go next?
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Lockney, president of Athens Services. Athens is a 4th-generation family-owned company founded in 1958 by Jack Arakelian, an immigrant from Armenia. Athens began as a 1-truck operation in the West Athens community in Los Angeles County, and that's become the largest commercial hauler in Los Angeles. I'm gratified that Athens achieved the highest score in the selection process, and I'm proud of our people, one of whom you'll hear from right next to me. Several years ago, the Bureau of Sanitation was handed the awesome challenge of making the city's zero waste goals a reality. They have conducted themselves with integrity and professionalism throughout this process and spent more than 16,000 hours crafting the detailed plan you have before you today. This plan is fully supported by a certified EIR. Most importantly, it is an integrated plan that must be considered and approved in its entirety. You cannot piecemeal it. We respectfully ask that you approve the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jessica?
Good afternoon, honorable council members. I am Jessica Aldrich, Sustainability Manager for Athens Services. We strongly support the recommendation before you today. Athens is a local family-owned company committed to diversity. More than 250 of our employees are city residents, of which over 80% are minorities. These hardworking women and men look forward to continuing their service with this great city. As a company that started in LA as a one-truck operations, Athens knows what it means to be given a chance, and we take seriously subcontractor diversity. We will continue to work with the Bureau to expand participation in the Business Inclusion Program and contract with additional minority and women-owned businesses. Also, as part of our submission, Athens sought out 9 nonprofit and community-based organizations with experience in zero-waste education, and we look forward to expanding this kind of community group collaboration in each of our assigned franchise zones. We would like now to submit for record a letter from an MBE transport company presently contracted with Athens and Waste Management supporting the franchise recommendation. I thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Cabrera, go ahead.
Kabira, hi.
Cabrera.
Good afternoon. No worries. My name is Kabira Stokes. I'm the founder and CEO of Isidore Electronics Recycling. We're a local, woman-owned, small business focused on protecting the environment and providing second chances for formerly incarcerated people through permanent employment. Isidore is a proud member of the Don't Waste LA Coalition, which I joined because of my personal belief that having a successful business and protecting our environment are not mutually exclusive concepts. We have also had business relationships with many of the haulers in the room and are very, very proud to be listed as a subcontractor for many of them. I am here today to strongly support the franchise system, urge you to move forward. We support it. It's going to be good for Los Angeles, and it's going to help protect the environment, and it's going to be good for our women-led company by increasing the creation of good green jobs in the recycling sector where workers earn a fair living and have safe working conditions. This is important because if we expect to have a world-class recycling system, we need a workforce that's highly trained and well compensated so there's less turnover and less service disruptions, and I know that's an important point for this committee. I encourage you to approve the recommendations today, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I will call the next set of speakers next. Elizabeth Hawley. Are you here? Zach Brown. Zach Brown, are you here? Jesse Marquez. I know you were here earlier. Sandy Cajas. Sandy, are you here? And before you start, I'm going to call for Jamie Potter again, Maria Chacon, and Joseph Arroyo. Okay, that's it. All right, you want to start, Elizabeth?
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Hawley with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, or VICA, representing businesses and nonprofits in the San Fernando Valley. At the beginning of this process, we expressed our deep concerns that the trash franchise system would lead to a dramatic increase in costs due to a lack of local competition, and this process has not fully addressed our concerns. Since the city will be setting rates in the future, we urge you to take the businesses and commercial property owners who will be paying for these services into consideration. However, we do welcome the recommended selection of the companies who have bid for these contracts. In the San Fernando Valley especially, Republic Services, Athens, and Waste Management take very seriously what it means to be a good community member, including working with nonprofits and other community partners. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Zach.
Yes. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Zach Brown. I'm a college student here in Los Angeles, and I'm here today because climate change is the most important issue facing our world. And as a youth in this community, I look to my elected officials to make decisions for the betterment of our city's future, my future, and my children's future. Climate change disproportionately impacts communities of color and minorities, and it concerns me as a citizen of this city. These haulers have gone through a strict evaluation, and I urge the committee to accept the Bureau of Sanitation's recommendations so that we can move forward in ensuring a better environment and a better future. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse?
Jesse Marquez, lifetime Wilmington resident, also president, chairperson of the Coalition for a Safe Environment. I'm here in support of what's being recommended, but I also want to point out, just like you heard my Councilman Buscano point out certain details regarding our community, some communities are not like other communities. Wilmington has been a trash magnet for industries. While the Port of LA is a great economic engine, while the road provides freight transportation, wherever there are off-port facilities such as container storage yards and railroad tracks, they are trash magnets.
Thank you, Jesse.
So we need ordinances and other requirements.
Thank you. Sandy?
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Sandy Cajas. I am president of the Regional Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Our mission is to promote the economic development of the Southern California business community. I am here today to ask for your support in approving the recommended waste haulers by the Bureau of Sanitation for the new zero waste LA system. As a regional chamber, I recommend and I welcome the opportunity to secure work for Los Angeles-based companies which stand to benefit from this economic development initiative. I invite all 7 haulers to join the Regional Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as we have a tremendous job to work together to implement zero waste in LA. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. The next 4 speakers are Ron Zaldana. Ron? You're here? Okay. Jim Clark? Jim Clark? I don't see Jim. You think he's outside?
He was here.
All right. David Pettit? David, I thought I saw you. There you are. And Ron Herrera. Mr. Zaldana, do you want to start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ron Saldana. I'm the Executive Director of the Los Angeles County Disposal Association. We've been working with the city now right from the beginning, and I'm just here today to commend the city staff, the city council, and everybody that's been involved in putting this initiative and this program forward. I attend a lot of functions around the state and around the country, and I will tell you that the city of Los Angeles is on everybody's mind and everybody's lips when they're talking about what's going on in the recycling diversion industry and sustainability. And you have certainly have a lot of people watching you. I'm here to commend you for the work that you've done. And from an industry standpoint, we're very proud of what's going on. The majority of our members, I would say, have been selected and recommended for a franchise, and so we're very proud of that. I would only want to add that we would encourage you to stay on track and to continue to fast-pace this process. Thank you.
David?
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is David Pettit. I'm a lawyer with the Natural Resources Defense Council. We've supported the Don't Waste LA program from day one. I actually want to address myself to what's on the agenda, and that is the CEQA issue. In my day job, I do CEQA work all the time. I looked at the EIR for this program when it first came out. I see a lot of really bad ones. This was a really good one, I thought. And when you make a change or you propose a change, like adding WMBE business to a program like this, it's not a physical change in the environment. So you don't need to do a new EIR. You don't need to do a lengthy addendum. You don't need to start over with the environmental work. So I think that the approach of your committee, and what I take to be the approach of the city attorney here, is correct. And I urge you to approve the plan today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herrera?
Distinguished committee, Madam Chair, I'm Ron Herrera, Western Region Vice President for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. I want to thank you all for your hard work and your commitment and for allowing me to speak today. I'll be short and concise. Pass the map. The process is spoken. Let's move forward. 6 years of process, 6 years of ups and downs, 6 years of checks and balances, neighborhood meetings, committee hearings, and stakeholder meetings. Let's move this to the council and have it debated and finalized on Friday. Workers, community, and the environment are all depending on us. Let's make Los Angeles not just a leader, but a model in zero waste. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I didn't see Jim Clark come into the room, so I think he's gone. And I've called Mr. Porter and Ms. Chacon and Mr. Arroyo, and they haven't come up. So this concludes public comment. So thank you very much. Colleagues, I'd like to call the Bureau of Sanitation to come up, as well as the City Attorney's Office. Do we have? Okay. So last time this item was in committee, the Bureau of Sanitation provided a thorough report on this matter before us today, including a set of recommendations. I understand that there are some key concerns and topics of discussion from that meeting with additional questions in terms of the recommended process and other policy concerns, particularly the real frustration with the low participation rate of women and minority businesses. So today, rather than having to you do the entire presentation, Mr. Zaldivar, I'm asking you to just go ahead and give your opening remarks, and Mr. Myers, I'm sorry, I want you to provide the committee with a recap of any additional information or recommendations that you'd like to share with this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Enrique Zaldivar, General Manager of LA Sanitation. Good afternoon, honorable members. On November 2nd, as you noted, Madam Chair, we presented to your committee our recommendations to award contracts to 7 companies to implement the city's franchise system, a system that has been in development for the last 6 years and is clearly a high priority for your council and Mayor Garcetti. A system that I can clearly tell you that my department is excited about getting it going with its implementation. In the course of the discussion at the last committee meeting, 3 general areas emerged as requiring further review, analysis, and discussion, as you noted, Madam Chair. 1, the process used by LA San for evaluation, backfill of vacated franchise zones and negotiation. I want to assure you, all of you, that in every instance and in every step of the process, integrity, fairness, and transparency were the guiding tenets of the evaluation and negotiation teams. Number 2, subcontracting and maybe-weeby participation, as you noted, Madam Chair, notwithstanding the fact that each of the 7 companies fully comply with the city's business inclusion and good faith outreach program, and the fact that 2 of the recommended companies are women-owned, you duly noted and we duly recognize that the participation levels could be higher. You, Madam Chair, introduced a motion on November 1st that makes this point very clear. And then number 3 of the items that were identified for further discussion were comments made by CR&R, both in oral testimony and at the committee and in various written communications. Several areas that they touched on several areas, but one that I want to unequivocally state is that based on the evaluation and the ranking that CR&R received on the proposal, in my judgment and the judgment of my staff and the department, LA San has deemed CR&R as unqualified to be considered at all for a large zone period. We have submitted our written reports to your committee, and Dan Myers of my staff will also go into the summary of what's in our reports. Thank you.
Mr. Myers?
Thank you, Dan Myers, Bureau of Sanitation. What I'd like to do is just highlight some of what is in both the response to the comments and the response to the motion. Most of which our response to comments can be summarized in just recapping the process that LA San went through in evaluating and negotiating these contracts. LACN contemplated and followed a detailed method of evaluations followed by negotiations that did not change throughout the entire process. At the end of an exhaustive evaluation process, LACN established a scoring and ranking for each proposer. There's a question raised of why cost was included in the evaluation process. Among the goals of the franchise system is ensure equitable rates at equitable services at reasonable rates that are available throughout the city. LACN could not be sure that a citywide maximum rate schedule could be negotiated. To ensure reasonable rates, LACN incorporated cost into the evaluation process. Proposals were required to submit cost components for collection, processing, disposal, fuel, administration, customer service, and container rental. Although LACN was ultimately able to negotiate a citywide maximum rate structure, the ability to achieve this was not realized till the end of negotiations. Electing to diverge from the evaluation process, for example, disregarding cost as an evaluation criteria after proposal submittal, would jeopardize the integrity of the process as the RFP set cost component as part of the total score. There are also a number of questions raised concerning how proposals were brought into the negotiation process and how zones were assigned. LACN established a process of utilizing proposal ranking as a factor in shortlisting and recommending zone award. This process remained consistent throughout. Zone assignments and the bundling of zones were determined during negotiations with the size of award depending on ranking. There was also a question raised as to why Republic Service was recommended for award given the City Council's policy on awarding contracts to companies with headquarters in Arizona. The RFP, the City Council and the City Council policy did not prohibit any company from submitting proposals, being evaluated, or from entering into negotiations. Republic Service was the second highest ranking proposer for large zones, and its participation in negotiations provided for increased competition throughout the process. Presently, Republic employs over 1,000 employees within LA County, and Republic owns and operates multiple facilities within LA County, with the local main office located in the city. Republic has had a long presence in the city, and it holds solid waste and recycling contracts. In addition, Republic currently collects solid waste from over 20% of the customers transitioning into the franchise system. Lastly, in reference to the questions raised on subcontracting, the LACN has participated in a number of meetings over the last month with the recommended proposers, the Board of Public Works, the Mayor and City Council office in response to Councilmember Martinez's motion addressing subcontractor participation in the franchise system. LACN, in conjunction with the Board of Public Works and the Bureau of Contract Administration, has detailed a number of both short-term and long-term strategies to strengthen subcontracting opportunities as the contracts are implemented. Those strategies are detailed in LACN's report. These strategies, as detailed, complement the number of parallel efforts taking place to increase subcontracting opportunities that include the creation of the new Board of Public Works Ad Hoc Business Advisory Committee, the formal written comments that you heard today from our 7 recommended haulers to increase subcontracting opportunities and increase diversity in subcontractors, and the approved motions presented by Councilmember Martinez and Blumenfield to revise the Zero Waste LA franchise ordinance. And I believe Adina Hoppenstand from the City Attorney's Office will address these further.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Madam City Attorney, can you shed some light on some of the concerns that this committee has brought up? Because there's been loud and clear frustration from a number of committee members as well as some members of the City Council. For example, Councilmember Huizar expressed some concerns and offered some suggestions that I believe Mr. Cedillo also shares the same concerns as well. So I want to hear from you. Can you help respond to that? Because it seems to me that for the most part, those issues are addressed in the draft ordinances, and that are before us as well as a result of my original motion and the one that was introduced by Councilmember Blumenfield.
Yes, I'll speak to that briefly. Adina Hopenstand from the City Attorney. I think, as you pointed out, the majority of the concerns that have been expressed have been now reflected in the recommended ordinance of item number 3, which incorporates both your motion, the amending motion, as well as Councilmember Blumenfield's, with transparency on subcontracting, identification of subcontracting opportunities, and as well as conditioning the city's sole option on adherence to the subcontractor reporting requirements as well as others as specified. They do not command an amendment to the contract, as that's not before you or something that council is able to do at this stage, but this is definitely goes to the heart of what a lot of the concerns that have been raised within the constraints of both state law and city law, some of which has been touched upon by others.
Well, colleagues, I have a lot to say on this matter, and I have a very strong sense of how I want to see this issue move forward, but I want to give you all an opportunity to go ahead and have any final questions, thoughts regarding this presentation here this afternoon. So who wants to start? Okay. Do you want to go first, Mr. O'Farrell? Mr. Correct?
Paul has to leave, so.
You have to go?
Well, I had to leave half an hour ago, so I'm not sure whether I'll actually get to do that.
I wish I could help you with that, sir. We could have met last Wednesday. So,
I would have been for that.
why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This day has been a long time in coming, and I especially want to thank, although I don't believe he's still here, my partner on this issue, Mr. Huizar, the former chair of this committee. What we've accomplished in 6 years is really pretty extraordinary. We started with a vision of zero waste and protections for waste workers and reducing greenhouse gases and providing great customer service and any number of other pieces to this franchise. And we have provided that. And now there are cities across the country, including New York, that are already starting to emulate us before we've even finished the process. So this is particularly exciting and particularly important because of our responsibility, especially with the winds blowing in the other direction from Washington, to lead on climate change and greenhouse gas issues, and I believe we really have done that. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved. They've already been thanked, so just very briefly, the sanitation department, which has been amazing, Greg Good with the mayor's office, who's helped to drive this, and the amazing Don't Waste LA Coalition. So I thank all of you for helping to get us here. This is really remarkable, and especially from an environmental standpoint, we are really going to accomplish some great things. I do have one question. I know we've talked about possibly swapping a zone for a different provider. What would happen if we did that? What would that do to this package?
Not all zones are attached to single contracts, so there are 3 contracts that have bundled zones. There is no swapping of one zone in one of those contract bundles where franchise zones are bundled. To do so would be a modification of the contract, which can't be done absent a rejection of the contract and starting over with whatever the rejection process entails.
So doing that would potentially set us back a year, 2 years?
Any amount of time. It depends on what the intent of the rejection. To the extent that there are additional RFP requirements, yes, it will set you back that period. And there would be also a requirement of negotiation, and not to mention some litigation risks.
I would ask my colleagues not to delay us any further. I think we are very timely and ready to go, and it's important that we move this critical program forward.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is indeed a landmark environmental and sustainability initiative that I am so proud to passionately support. And I know that in the last nearly 3.5 years since I've been on the council, my staff and I have had every last question that we've had answered and explored. And in respect to the other concerns that have been raised, and are being vetted. I'm comfortable with that as well. And I have just a couple of quick questions in relation to something that I brought up many, many months ago on this committee, and that was we did lose an opportunity in the drafting of these, the RFP for the contracts. We did, I think, squander an opportunity, no blame, but it's something that could have been included, and that is, and Enrique, you and I have spoken about this before, and that is the opportunity for the contractees to also help with cleaning up the neighborhoods, since the trucks are going to be in the areas. And I know that that train left the station, but I think there might be an opportunity to address that because, as our colleague Joe Buscaino expressed a concern in a lot of our districts, is just excessive trash, bulky items, et cetera. And so my question is in relation to the report back from the CAO regarding the collected fees and where the funds will go and what they will be used for. So do we know when that report will be ready and when that can be heard in committee? Does anyone know?
Not offhand as to when it'll be completed, council member, but I know that clearly it has to come to your committee here. So
I think that the revenues generated will give us an opportunity to expand on this program and work closely with your department, very likely, on funding more sanitation, specific sanitation needs and duties related to, increased bulky item and trash pickup in our neighborhoods and our multifamily buildings.
And I think your point is excellent in that, part of our excitement about getting going with this implementation is the integration and the coordination that can happen between the 7 franchisees and us in sanitation. Clearly, that's going to be the case on the broader issues like the illegal dumping and that kind of stuff.
Okay, and I think this next question and my last question is relevant to the concerns raised in terms of minority hiring and working harder to bring minority-owned companies into the process and women-owned companies into the process. And that is, what can you take us through the kind of outreach in order to identify those potential subcontractors? Because I think there's a real opportunity there to fulfill those concerns that were raised by Mr. Huizar today.
Yes, through both Councilmember Martinez's motion and Councilmember Blumenfield's motions, you have added a number of instructions for us to accomplish in collaboration with the board and Bureau of Contract Administration that have in so many ways have began already. You heard the testimony from the haulers themselves, the companies themselves, but in the immediacy, in this time of holiday period, as an example, we're going to be already organizing with your council offices outreach events in each of the 7 zones in which we will work with all of the stakeholders and the haulers, each hauler, by convening a level 1 type of outreach. This is the outreach just so that folks know about the opportunity to begin with. That starts literally, well, depending if you approve on Friday, then it starts through the holidays. We'll be doing some work through the holidays. And then that will lead to the level 2 kind of outreach, which is the subcontracting addition type of thing, which is a different process. That requires a different kind of outreach based on the 209 and the Bureau of Contract Administration's own protocols. And so the idea is to tee as much of that up as possible, doing it the right way, and then have it begin to yield the dividends and the outcomes that clearly the City Council would like to see.
Terrific. Well, thank you. And my office looks very forward to partnering with you on that outreach in the coming weeks and months. And let's get this thing approved and let's move forward as a leader on sustainability and cleaning up the environment with this program. Thank you so much.
Mr. Blumenfield?
Thank you. First off, I'm excited about what we're doing in terms of sustainability and the environment. This has been a long time coming, and there's been a tremendous amount of work done, and certainly we had a lot of conversation about it. I don't want to relitigate all of the previous conversations. I do think something major has happened since last week on Wednesday, and that was working out with a number of folks and putting together the motion that I put together that basically gives the meeby-weeby issue some teeth. Because I think that the number, as we've all expressed, is shameful in terms of the low number of, minority women-owned subcontractors that's in here. We all want that number to be higher. The question is, how do we make that happen? And how do we make it happen without destroying this contract and doing it in a legal way? And what I think is important about the change that we made since last week, since last Wednesday, is the idea of liquidated damages. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about this, but the problem has been, prior to this, is that we have a lot of good transparency language saying what are your best efforts moving forward, which is important, and we have a lot of commitments from the haulers, which is important, and a lot of goodwill, which is important. But there was no way, the concern is what happens once you let this contract go, and then there's potentially 10 years before the next bite at the apple. But the motion before us, and I want you to talk about it a little bit in terms of how it works, as I understand it, it gives us leverage into the future. Unlike the way it was characterized by one of the public comments about, dancing without music, in terms of best practices, as I understand it, it's best practices, but it allows the department to determine what those goals are and how we define those best practices each and every year. So rather than defining them just this year and then being limited to what happens this year, we define those best practices, the department defines them, and then when we want to set the bar higher the next year, we're able to do that. And the council is able to act and direct the department to do that. And if the haulers don't meet that, we have a hammer we can put down, and if they don't meet those, how we set those goals, there can be financial penalties. Am I characterizing it correctly?
Yes, I'm going to make one clarification. They're not liquidated damages within the contract. It's a penalty that will be reflected in rules and regulations specifying the best efforts, as you indicated, the actual criteria for how you gauge that. So, and also penalties for failure to exercise best efforts in the identification of subcontractor opportunities and the like. So yes, will be something that is codified. It will be specific, and there will be a penalty component, all that will be approved by the Board of Public Works that will be determined by Bureau of Sanitation.
And I think it's important that we're passing this prior to those contracts so that no one can say after the fact that they didn't realize when they signed those contracts that this was part of what we fully intend. And part of the purpose of setting the legislative record here today is to make it clear to all the haulers. You're going to sign a contract with us. We have something on the books to hold you accountable to the way we define best practices moving forward. And that is going to be a bar that gets higher and higher each year until we're in a much better place, and something all of us are committed to. And that's why I think we're in a much better place today, and I'm glad that we're hearing this today than we were last week on Wednesday. So I'm happy that we're moving forward on that, in that direction. Another thing I wanted to comment on about, we talk about the Arizona boycott. When I voted for the boycott, and I certainly did, and I supported it, it was a horrible anti-immigrant law in Arizona. But right in the resolution, the way we wrote it, it was unless or until basically that law is revoked. That law was invalidated. So from my perspective, that boycott doesn't exist anymore. Arizona's still not a great place in terms of the way they treat immigrants. No way. I am a strong immigrant rights and want to be as tough as we can. But that boycott, when we voted for it and when we spoke about it, and I spoke out on it, was about that horrendous law. And that horrendous law is no longer on the books. We need to do what we need to do with our code, but I think it's a little bit of a red herring when we start putting that forward. So I wanted to just publicly express that as well. But meanwhile, I think this is a very good, an amazing amount of work has gone into this, and we're moving forward in a positive direction, and I'm going to support it as is.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. Mr. Cedillo?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your leadership on this. Let me begin by thanking Mr. Huizar and Mr. Koretz. Congratulations. We are moving forward with a product that reflects an incredible vision for this city. What we're doing today is extraordinary. It's a model not just for cities in this nation, but a model for the world. And it's very significant. But there's three aspects to this. There is the environmental concerns, there are the labor concerns, and then there are the concerns of economic development. All those three components are each valuable in their own right. Just recently I got back from Hamburg, Germany, and I saw in many respects what the future would be like if we had those values. I didn't see homelessness. I didn't see trash. What I saw was sensors in every trash can. What I saw were sorting that was remarkable. What I saw was an efficiency in the utilization of energy that was just really admirable. And we're moving in that direction with this contract. We have been successful in accomplishing the environmental goals of this initiative, and no one from the environmental community or the environmental justice community objects to this proposal, nor should they. In fact, they have lobbied effectively for this agreement. With respect to labor, this is really extraordinary. I don't know if Ron Herrera is here. Ron Herrera is a working class hero. He's a visionary. And he is doing something that he should be lauded for, and his union should be lauded for today. In many respects, we are making a choice of technology versus work. The fact of the matter is so much of work is being removed because of technology. And the fact of the matter is, in some period of time, we will have the capacity to have this trash hauled by trucks that drive themselves. And we are at a point where we have to make decisions. Do we value work over the efficiencies of technology? I believe that today what we're doing is trying to take control of the technological advances and utilize them to make work more effective and make it more productive. But Ron, you are a visionary, because I will share with you, I was once a union leader and worked for Service Employees International Union. We had a bargaining unit. It's the court reporters. And the court reporters are extraordinary today. They were led by a man named Gary Kramer, and he needs to be acknowledged much like Ron is. Because court reporting today is done based upon the foundation technology of 1880s. Not 1980s, 1880s. Now, all of us know that technology has advanced, and we can record conversations and make dependable recordings of exchanges that would take place in the courtroom, but it continues to be done based upon that technology because they had a strong union. And a strong union means good paying jobs. It means protecting the middle class in America. And so we're not just doing something here for the city of Los Angeles, but Ron Herrera is going to lead the way through this proposal, and making sure we protect middle-class jobs, not just with the 7 franchisees in this agreement, and not just for the workers in that workforce, but the entirety of their workforces. And I don't doubt that the Teamsters will grow exponentially in this industry. And as they do, we will ensure that working men and women are protected at the workplace, that they have jobs with dignity and respect, and that we will have middle-class jobs that will serve best our economy and serve to help bridge the divide between wealth and poverty that has taken place in this nation. I would contrast that with developments, for example, in transportation, when you compare taxi cab drivers and the phenomenon of Uber, what was once a couple 100,000 good-paying jobs in this nation have not captured, in many instances because of the restrictions of government, we're unable to make the changes of technology. And now those couple 100,000 good-paying middle-class jobs are now 1 million jobs with modest pay. Clearly, no one who's an Uber driver is going to be using that experience to buy their home, to raise their children, to send them off to college. So what Ron Herrera, my brother, is doing here with the Teamsters is really laudable, and I don't think it's fully appreciated. But in the area of economic development for communities of color, for small businesses, let me be more exact, for small businesses, which in this city in many instances means communities of color, small businesses which play such a major part in our economy, we have failed dismally. We have failed dismally. We know that. I think we're at 0.5% on an average, when the goals in the RFP were 12%. So we should have been subcontracting here, talking about 12% of, for the first 10 years, over $3.5 billion. $3.5 billion. 88% of all this is all in the operations, including a 15% profit. I don't begrudge the 15% profit. It's impressive. It's admirable. But clearly the city, we, the city of Los Angeles, have as our vision for how we contract with services we provide, how we franchise, we have a vision that 20% of all our activity that we're responsible for would be part of the economy, part of that economics would be small businesses. And so we're far from 20%. We're far from 12%. We are at 0.5%. And so we have failed miserably, and a third that's so important. Obviously, you've heard the concerns for a period of time from many of my colleagues. Mr. Huizar has been articulate in this matter, and Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is move that we incorporate the language from Mr. Huizar so that we can ensure that we do not perpetuate this structural disparity that would come out of this contract. Mr. Huizar's language is very thoughtful. I want to thank the city attorney who has been available at all hours for our efforts and helped us make sure that we are working within the limits, but to the limits of the law. And so, Madam Chair, one of the things I think that makes this great contract that we're voting on even greater is by incorporating the language that Mr. Huizar has added. Secondly, I would like to add that Mr. Buscaino has raised legitimate concerns, and I say to you, and I think that we can do this collectively, as great as this is, it can be greater. And that we can take the resources that Mr. Buscaino spoke about and use that to make more exact the routing of the trucks, to use that to bring sensors to every trash can so we're never going to a trash can that's empty. To use this to make sure that we are at the optimum of efficiency for the city so that the environment is as clean as it can be for the working men and women of the city, and that we are as effective and as productive with the money from the taxpayers of the city, and that we are ensuring that we are integrating all elements of our society into this great endeavor. I think we can do that. I think that incorporating the language of Mr. Buscaino does that, and I would like to offer both those as friendly amendments to moving this matter. I will not make perfection the enemy of something that is really great, but I think we can make it greater by adding both those amendments. And then finally, I share the perspective of my dear colleague, Mr. Blumenfield. We voted for, you were referring to our time in the Capitol? Yeah, we voted for the boycott in Arizona, but it was tied to specific legislation. That legislation was ruled unconstitutional, as we said it was at the time. And not only was it ruled unconstitutional, but the state has made efforts to bring specific instructions, code of conduct, regs for the law enforcement community. And we are in a process of reevaluating that law. It may no longer serve our interests because time after time we have to come back and make an exemption. I think in part one of the problems here is that our policy implicitly prohibits companies located in Arizona from contracting with the city. What we continually do is allow people to bid, and then once they're at the end of the bidding process, we say, oh my God, now we have to decide, do we want body cameras, which serve a great purpose for the city, or do we want an outstanding Do we want a company who we rely upon for this incredible endeavor? Constantly having to reevaluate this when the policy allowed people to come forward. As we've stated, and the President is helping us move forward on this, it's time for us to reevaluate the efficacy of that policy. It may no longer be relevant and may no longer serve a purpose for the city of Los Angeles. With those three comments, Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move this forward.
All right, thank you very much. And I will state my recommendations as soon as I'm done with my set of concerns. But thank you, Mr. Cedillo. I too have real concerns with the poor performance of the recommended haulers as it relates to the participation rate of women, minority, and other business enterprises. There are countless honorable and well-qualified women who own businesses out there who are certainly able to effectively provide services to these franchises. The same could be said about any minority group. Yet it's so frustrating to see that despite the rhetoric about female empowerment and equal opportunity and various movements of past decades, we see that true opportunity remains out of reach for so many of us. It is a concern that bothered me from the very beginning when I saw the report, and a concern that I know I have an obligation to do something about. After all, I didn't run for city council to serve as a rubber stamp, and I certainly didn't enter public service to complain or whine or be an obstructionist. I became a council member to affect change as best I can, and I'm trying to do that. And it was my intent with the motion that I introduced last month that I demand that sanitation find real ways to move and fix this moving forward. Certainly the franchise system will bring both a tremendous environmental benefits to the city of Los Angeles and set examples for the rest of the country, as it was noted earlier. It will lead to better pay and better benefits, cleaner truck fleets, more recycling, and less waste going into landfills. And clearly there are priorities for the city of LA. But I know as great as those accomplishments will be, it would not be fair to move forward at the expense of providing true opportunity for the classes of people who have historically been disenfranchised. There has been way too many. We have to find a way to ensure that there's a win for everyone, not just the policymakers and special interest groups, but that all people participating in the system get a win. Because it's franchises, it's huge for our city. For me, this became more of moving forward with the environmental and workforce improvements that come out of this franchise system, and to ensure that, making sure that qualified and capable firms not only have a fair chance to be part of this, but to also make sure that there's real changes in how the distribution and the pie is being sliced. I want to make sure everyone gets their fair share. My message to the haulers is really simple. I'm expecting improvement, not just in the participation rates, but in the value of the opportunities for women and minority businesses that can be part of this. In my opinion, there is nothing more insulting and disrespectful than being excluded, but also to be included, but not only to only a minimal share of work by just simply checking off the box. That's simply not going to work for me. So I want to make sure that folks are not settling for pennies on the dollar. When it comes to subcontracting, we must be fair on both opportunity, the fair of work, and the fair of price for their work. I want to ensure that those pieces are being met. As we're pushing this for workers, we also need to expect the same thing from women and minority businesses. Haulers, I've seen the letter of commitment that you've all submitted, and heaven forbid that you don't keep your word. Because in case you don't, colleagues, the draft ordinance before us will help. Because if they don't perform, we now have added some teeth into the ordinance to ensure that we pursue liquidated damages or even rescind their contracts if they are in breach. As I mentioned earlier, I have been driven to press the city staff to find solutions to these concerns, and I was pleased to see that good solutions came forward so that we can, in good faith and in good conscience, move this agenda item forward for a vote. Because it is very important to set the path moving forward and make sure that all the objectives are being achieved in this matter. But at the same time, I as we're making progress, I also grew incredibly frustrated. The discussions with the franchise goes back 5 to 6 years. And some of the members of the city council that are members today were members back then. What I was more frustrated about was that I began to hear reports that the progress that was made over the past couple of weeks was not sufficient, that more needed to be done, that I couldn't stop but to wonder, why weren't these people raising these concerns 5 or 6 years ago? For better or for worse, the effort to establish a franchise system was one that was thoroughly thought out from the very beginning. Sanitation thought of the process. You ensured that on how it was being implemented. You ensured that every council member was briefed and that we had a time frame to work with. From the draft implementation plan that was developed after considering more than 22 different council missions, 22 different council missions from its inception, to the final implementation plan that reflects more than 13 additional amending motions. All that debate, and not once did anyone ever raise concerns or make a priority an objective to providing opportunities for women, minority businesses to participate in this franchise. I want to make that very clear. Not once did anyone explicitly tell sanitation that an Arizona-based company must be able to respond, cannot respond to the RFP or have their response considered. Not once. And now at the 11th hour, after 6 years of work through which people have now found a way to advocate and raise more than 35 other issues. And with all of that effort in the past month or so, people still didn't think we had enough opportunity to express their concerns. That is truly frustrating, and now people argue that it wasn't enough. And I'm sorry, but I think this is plain rude and disrespectful to sanitation staff, to the city attorney staff, and to all the other city family that bent backwards to develop solutions for this. So yes, hindsight is always 20/20, but when you recognize a problem, fix it. Don't just complain about it. And this committee is better than that, and the city council is better than that. So colleagues, based on the level of work that has been done by the sanitation, by the city attorney's office, the mayor's office, and frankly, many of your respected offices that have worked with us to move this forward, I have a set of recommendations that I trust that you will support, so that these recommendations will help us add more teeth to the enforcing of our priorities with these franchises. So I want to read those now. I think I gave a copy to the, Mr. Clerk, you have them?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to move the following recommendations. 1, approve the recommendations of the Bureau of Sanitation and the Bureau of Contract Administration Joint Board Report Number 1, dated September 26, 2016, excluding recommendation number 5. 2, consider the sequel addendum with the certified program EIR and find that the previously certified EIR remains relevant, and find that the activities approved by the contract awards are within the scope of the project covered by the certified program EIR, and that the activities would not have effects with certified EIR, did not examine, and that no new environmental document is required. 3, note and file the CAO report dated October 13, 2016, and November 7, 2016, and the Bureau of Sanitation report dated November 28 of 2016. Number 4, approve the draft ordinance as prepared by the city attorney transmitted into Council File 16-1235-S1. Number 5, note and file the draft ordinance as prepared by the city attorney transmitted into File 16-1235. Number 6, approve instructions of the Bureau of Sanitation referenced in the November 28, 2016 Bureau of Sanitation report relative to women and minority business participation. Number 7, Request the Board of Public Works to execute the contract until January 31st of 2017. Number 8, request sanitation to report back to the Environment and Energy Committee in 30 days on the following. A, additional subcontracting opportunities that may be expected in the current contracts. B, progress made to expand outreach to potential subcontractors that can be added after the franchise awards be executed. Outreach should be to all types of businesses, included but not limited to WBE, MBE, OBE, OVB, EBE, SBE, with added focus on subcontractors with little or no previous government procurement experience. And number 9, request sanitation to seek amendments for the contracts are executed and incorporate additional subcontracting and outreach goals so that meeting these goals are material requirements of the contracts to the extent permitted by law.
Madam Chair, just one.
Yes, Mr. Cedillo.
Did I hear you or not hear you mention the disabled veterans in that group? They were in?
Yes, on the OBEs, yes. And on the OBEs and the DVBEs.
Thank you.
Yes.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cedillo. Any other questions? Okay. With no further objections, these recommendations are approved. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam
for
Chair.
coming.
Thank you.
And there are no more, well, we're not done, folks. This still has to go to council on Friday. So I wish I can tell you, but, you know, we can all applaud ourselves on Friday once this is done. So thank you very much. This concludes our meeting for the day. Our meeting is adjourned.